All right, it's called Harry Potter and the Art of Adaptation, an analysis of the Harry Potter films. In my experience as a film enthusiast and a Harry Potter fan, I have run into some conflict with my fellow Hogwartians. It was almost difficult to go to the movie theater with them. I hated it, they would inevitably say after the Harry Potter film ended. It was nothing like the book. A lot of Harry Potter fans believe that they are true fans because they don't like the movies. They would argue, if you really loved the books, you would understand why the movies are horrible. This was an assumed and grossly inaccurate generalization of me and other fans like me. I loved the books, but I loved the movies as well. I recognized that they weren't like the books exactly, but I still felt that the movies portrayed the books authentically. What was I seeing that these fans weren't? After many years of closely analyzing, and simply enjoying, these films, I came to realize what was happening. There was a miscommunication. All 8 Harry Potter movies portray the books accurately. The difference is they represent them cinematically. Just as literature uses different techniques to communicate ideas, film does as well. Film directors and editors use camera angle, music, and set design the same way authors use imagery, metaphor, and juxtaposition. Over the years of watching the Harry Potter movies, I realized that these movies were communicating J.K. Rowling's ideas through film devices rather than literary ones. If a Harry Potter fan claims not to like the Harry Potter films solely because they do not match the books, they are making an insubstantial claim. I've concluded that one simply cannot judge film in the same manner as one judges literature. Just like one cannot justify scientific fact on fiction, you cannot justify camera angles on paragraphs. Claiming not to like the Harry Potter movies because they're not like the Harry Potter books is the same thing as claiming not to like apples because they don't taste like oranges. If a person expects to taste an orange when he bites into an apple, he is either blind or a fool. Do not go into a film expecting to get the book. They are completely different media. In this essay, I will show how the films depict the books authentically. Additionally, I will also talk about particularly controversial decisions the filmmakers made regarding book accuracy. I will show how even when the movies stray from the books, they still capture the spirit of the story. And that is the intro. And then I talk about Sorcerer's Stone, which you'll have to read, which you'll have to become a patron to read this section. And I have a separate essay for every single movie/book. So, if you don't want to miss out, become a patron. Let me just skip through Chamber of Secrets. I'm in Chamber of Secrets now. Here we go. Prisoner of Azkaban. Puberty at its purest. Out of all the Harry Potter movies, Prisoner of Azkaban, in my experience, was perhaps one of the least favorite based on the case that it didn't match the book. Many people complained that it left out too much. This book was one of the most introspective, meaning the filmmakers had to work especially hard at conveying introspective development visually, causing them to deviate from the book. Page 74 from Film Wizardry talks about how Alfonso Cuarón, the director, solved the problem of filming a large and complex book. By focusing primarily on Harry's development as little else mattered, they made room to show character development in other characters as well, Hermione in particular. They show Harry's growth into adulthood not just through his mood swings, but by the parental figures that surround him. One of the primary introspective themes that Harry specifically experiences in the book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, is one that is carried out through the rest of the series, the complications of puberty. Harry is a teenager now and is beginning to show it. His manner of speaking to his hateful relatives has completely changed. He is no longer the timid child that keeps out of their way. When Uncle Vernon instructs Harry to keep a civil tongue in his head when talking to Aunt Marge, Harry replies bitterly, "If she does when she's talking to me." Page 19. Harry corners his uncle before his uncle leaves to pick up his Aunt Marge to convince him to sign his Hogsmeade permission form. Uncle Vernon mistakenly thinks Harry's trying to go with him. "I'm not taking you," he snarls. Harry replies, "Like I wanted to come," with a nasty attitude. Page 20. That's not all. Harry even goes so far as to blackmail Uncle Vernon, agreeing only only to not let slip to Aunt Marge where he really goes to school if he will sign. Certainly not a scared little kid anymore. He even uses magic unintentionally on Aunt Marge by causing her to swell up because of his abrupt and intense swing of emotion. Page 29. His family members aren't the only ones to face his moodiness. Harry talks back to Professor Snape in Chapter 14, something teenagers are infamous for. Snape says things about Harry's father that Harry doesn't like, so Harry tells him to shut up on page 284, something he wouldn't have dared to do in the 2 years previous. Anger isn't the only emotion frequently found in teenagers. Harry's first inklings of romantic attraction occur when he sees his first girlfriend for the first time, noticing, as nervous as he was, that Cho Chang was extremely pretty. Page 259. Harry isn't the only one going through some things. Hermione is having a particularly difficult year as well. Not only is she trying to handle her teenage emotions, but she has a larger than usual workload, probably more than even an adult can handle. Using the time turner, Hermione is able to take more classes than normally possible, giving herself more homework than she has time for. On page 264, Harry asks her if she even attended that day's Quidditch match. She affirms that she did, but she can't talk about it because she needs to finish her homework. Harry tries to get her to eat. "I can't, Harry. I've still got 422 pages to read," she says, sounding slightly hysterical. Ron makes her feel worse because he holds her responsible for the disappearance of his rat. She bursts into tears on page 265. Her distress comes to a head when she encounters Draco disrespecting Hagrid on page 293 and slaps him across the face. Later that same day, she makes her disdain for divination known to the divination teacher, Professor Trelawney, and storms out of the classroom shouting, "Fine, I give up. I'm leaving." Page 298. The movie may not have kept all these specific details, but this theme was clearly there. Daniel Radcliffe, Harry, acted the hormonal teenager perfectly by responding to Aunt Marge in a defiant, ungrateful way, and by slamming his bedroom door and kicking the leg of his desk in fury after his magical mishap with her. Also during this scene, the special effects team had dishes clatter and lights flicker all by themselves to show Harry's intense emotion magically, which didn't occur in the book. Other examples of teenagerness are featured at Hogwarts in added scenes and elements. There is a transitional scene shortly after the students' arrival in which Harry and his dorm mates are acting particularly rowdy, giving it a boys will be boys sort of feel. During breaks in outdoor classes, the actors were allowed to wear their uniforms loosely as real teenage students would. This is also the film to introduce Muggle clothing at Hogwarts, hiring Janie to mime to make a more mature look for the actors. Sibley 774. That's film wizardry. While many fans didn't like this touch, it showed each character's sense and desire of style, something that a teenager develops at this stage. Boys weren't the only ones who showed a bit of angst in the movie. Emma Watson portrayed female teenage angst fantastically, taking Hermione's dislike for divination a step further than the book by knocking over the crystal ball before storming out of the classroom. She also punches Draco Malfoy in the face when it was only a slap in the book, 293. It's not all anger with her this year, however. Suddenly she is concerned with her looks like a teenager would be, commenting during the rescue of Buckbeak's scene, "Is that really what my hair looks like from the back?" There's also an unusual number of parental figures for Harry in this book, including Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, Prime Minister Fudge, Professor McGonagall, Professor Remus Lupin, and Sirius Black. This scene plays a part in Harry's pubescent development, revealing that while Harry is growing up, he needs significant parental direction. In pages 65 to 68, Harry overhears an argument between Mr. and Mrs. Weasley over whether they should tell Harry about Sirius Black. They are clearly concerned for his well-being, with Mr. Weasley wanting Harry to be treated like an adult, and Mrs. Weasley wanting to protect Harry's feelings. Mr. Fudge lets Harry off lightly concerning his aunt because he feels sorry for Harry, page 45. Professor McGonagall looks at Harry with pity, 150, when she refuses to sign his Hogsmeade permission form to protect him. Later in that same chapter, Professor Lupin spends time with Harry, encouraging him about his fear of Dementors. That suggests that what you fear most of all is fear. Very wise, Harry. Page 155. Sirius Black has his turn at a little parenting as well. Well, when it is revealed that Sirius is not the villain, he unmasks Ron's rat as Peter Pettigrew. Pettigrew then proceeds to plead with his captors to let him live. He appeals to Harry that Harry looks just like his father, and Sirius seeks to protect Harry by shouting at Pettigrew, "How dare you speak to Harry? How dare you face him? How dare you talk about James in front of him?" Page 374. Despite being an orphan, Harry is surrounded by adults who care for him. The movie includes all these characters and shows them in a parental light, especially with Lupin during Dementor lessons and Sirius Black desiring to have Harry live with him. When Harry first sees Mrs. Weasley in the movie, she fusses over him, making sure all his things are packed for school. When Harry affirms that he is ready for the trip to Hogwarts, she says to him affectionately, "Good boy," patting him on the cheek. Mr. Weasley warns Harry about looking for Sirius Black in the very next moment. During Harry's meeting with Mr. Fudge, he attempts to protect Harry from the truth about Black by proclaiming, "You're safe." He also warns Harry that he shouldn't wander in Diagon Alley alone. Professor McGonagall refuses to sign Harry's permission form in the film, just like she does in the novel, but she also touches Harry on the shoulder, saying, "I'm sorry, Potter, but that's my final word," with a sorry look on her face. The filmmakers took particular care in making Lupin and Sirius Harry's best fatherly figures. The actors commented on the parental roles of Lupin and Sirius on pages 79 and 86 of Film Wizardry. Gary Oldman, Sirius, felt that he was able to play the special role because he loves Dan. "I just used what's already there," he explained. And David Thewlis, Lupin, described his character as a great comfort to Harry, an insight that aided him in his remarkable performance. Many details were considered in the making of this film, but the details that prevailed were the ones that reflected the introspective themes of adolescence, a parent in Harry Potter, and his close friends, teachers, and guardians. And if you would like to hear more, become a patron.